Hi, this is Sandy from Spitfire's Customer Experience team, and this is the third video in our series looking at the instruments included in Sound Dust Volume 1. In this video, we're going to look at the Ghost Dulcitone 1900. I'd certainly recommend starting with the first two videos on the Dulcitone 1884 and 1900, as many of the controls are similar. When you open one of the presets from the Ghost Dulcitone 1900, you'll notice that there are 5 tabs along the bottom. The left-hand tab is just a simple artwork with the URL for the Sound Dust website. Then we have the Dulcitone engine, the Ghost engine, the Noise engine, and then a manual page with drop-down menus to explain each of these sections. The main page is the Dulcitone engine. If you've used Dulcitone 1884 and 1900, then this will look reasonably familiar to you. Again, along the top, we have buttons for muting and unmuting the various voices or oscillators. In this case, we have the Dulcitone 1900. We have 3 different ghost options, which I'll let you hear in a moment, a Nord synthesizer sound, and our note on and off. Underneath each of these buttons, we have a volume control, pan, and stereo width controls. You can simply drag these or click and drag on them to adjust. For the Dulcitone 1900, we also have the familiar sample start control. Again, just simply click and drag to move the sample start. This can quite dramatically affect the timbre of the sound. The Dulcitone sound on its own sounds quite a lot like the samples from the Dulcitone 1900 instrument, which sounds like this. If I mute that for a moment, let's hear what the other Ghost and Nord lead sounds can add to this sound. You can hear there's quite a lot to play with there. And for each of these sounds, we also have envelope controls underneath, a formant control, which can change the formant frequency that you hear. And next to the formant controls for some of these sounds, you'll also see a button which allows you to turn the formant filter on or off. It's always on by default on the leftmost Ghost, and it's not available for the Nord lead or the note off sounds. Instead, for these sounds, you have a pitch control, which allows you to select the octave that these sound at. With the formant switched on, we also have speed and depth controls for the modulation of that sound, which allows you to add movement to the sound. Let's hear what effect that can have. Again, you can hear this is quite dramatic, so I'd advise using it sparingly at first. And we also have a tremolo, speed and depth controls, which allow us to do a similar sort of effect, but instead of affecting the formant filter sound, we'll be hearing that affecting the volume. Let's hear what that sounds like. Just like Dulcitone 1900, to the right of our various controls here, we also have some master effects. Again, we have a rotor, which is much like a Leslie cabinet sound. You can enable that by clicking on this button, and affect the speed by clicking on this waveform. We also have balance and mix controls for this effect. Let's hear what those do. To the right of our rotor control, we have a dust fader. Again, this adds a sort of a grit and distortion and can make the sounds quite bright and brassy. And then this knob labeled Drink Me is a sort of morphing EQ. Again, this is a very dramatic effect and can sound fantastic if you automate that. Let's hear what those two sound like. As you can hear, those are very dramatic sound sculpting tools. Under these effects, we have the same 3 pages that we had in the Dulcitone 1900, the first of which is a convolution reverb, which you can view by clicking on this toggle, and enable by clicking on this one. When it's red, it's enabled. Again, we have 2 menus, the first of which will select the category of reverb, and the second will select the reverb itself. And again, we have an amount control, which sets the send level of the reverb effect. Under the reverb, we have a cabinet effect, which we can enable in the same way, and we just have the one menu for this, with a great variety of cabinet IRs to play with. And at the bottom, we have a 3-band EQ, which we can enable, and then click and drag on the faders to change. The tab next to the Dulcitone engine is the Ghost engine. This allows us to control the send level for the reverb for each of the voices, as well as enabling and disabling that send. And then we have the same controls that we've seen before: size, pre-delay, color, and dampening. To change each of these, simply click and drag up and down, and you'll see the feedback on the control itself. Sometimes it will change size, and other times it will change color. We also have the jitters here, which we can turn up for our note ons and note off. This is like a MIDI delay between 0 and 100 milliseconds on each of the note ons or note offs, which can add a little bit of unpredictability to the sound. Next to the Ghost engine, we have our Noise engine tab. This allows us to turn on and off our distortion for each of the voices and affect the level of it. We also have a high-pass filter and resonance controls, and a low-pass filter and low-pass resonance. To the right of these effects, we have our round-robin controls, and we can also choose our note-off sample from this drop-down. Our round robins are off. We can also select them on and various other settings here, and we can select our number of variations and how those sounds are actually ordered. The default being round robin, where they'll cycle through, but you can also put them on really random, so that the sample selected for each note will be completely randomized. Again, this should probably be used sparingly because it can have a really dramatic effect on the sound. The final tab on the right here, labelled RTFM, again, is an instruction manual. This can be really handy if you don't want to go digging around in the manual and you just want to get quickly acquainted with what the different controls do. That's all for this video. If you've got any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us at spitfireaudio.com/support. Join me in the next video and we'll be looking at the Grand Thrift Auto Harp.